Hey guys, Dino here. Welcome back to the channel and to another reaction. Today's food video is Poland. Let's check it out.
Do you have a hankering for some sausage, cabbage, or a pastry that resembles the mountains of Central Europe? It sounds like you're in the mood for some Polish cuisine. Cabbage grows abundantly in Poland's cool weather,
cabbage,
along with the likes of beets, carrots, and potatoes. Add to that the fact that one of their cuisine's traditional flavor combinations is sweet and sour, and it quickly becomes clear why such stuffed cabbage is such a popular and ubiquitous dish.
I've had stuffed
Same
cabbage
goes
before.
for
It's
rolled
delicious.
cabbage or gołąbki. The mixture is seasoned with garlic and paprika before being rolled in cooked
That looks like
cabbage
kimchi right there.
leaves. Potential recipe you can try uses a sprinkle of brown sugar and a spoonful of lemon juice to achieve that perfect flavor
Sweet and
balance.
sour.
Bigos is a meat-based
Bigos.
stew with sauerkraut, potatoes, bacon,
I
and
love
kielbasa,
sauerkraut.
a Polish
Damn, that
sausage
sounds
that
good.
we'll be discussing in more detail in a little bit. It's often been called the country's national dish.
Really?
Its inclusion of sauerkraut would appear to indicate a German
yeah.
influence. Either way, that sauerkraut, like the rice and rolled cabbage, is a great way to stretch out a small amount of meat for a hungry family or
Filler.
other large group. As noted by Taste Atlas, Polish cuisine prides itself in hearty and comforting dishes, and bigos has been present in the Polish
Bigos.
culinary tradition since the 17th century. A number of Polish recipes suggest that bigos preparation should begin at least 2 days before it is to be eaten,
Oh,
so
wow.
that it can be cooked once and then reheated twice more, presumably to deepen the flavor. Furthermore, during the long cooking process, it's a good idea to dilute the bigos with wine, and traditionally, one accompanies bigos with a shot of Polish vodka.
Oh, wow.
A pierogi refers to a dumpling of Polish origin that can be filled with almost anything,
That
whether
looks
it's
good.
meat, kashi, vegetables, cheese, or even sweets like fruit and chocolate. Pierogi is actually the plural form, which is why you'll never see
Pierogi.
us putting an S at the end of the word. Apart from the spelling challenge
feels like
that it
Russian
offers
for
to
some reason.
English speakers,
But, I mean, they have them too,
pierogi
right?
is, as noted by CNN, undoubtedly Poland's most famous and simple comfort food. Although pierogi is a dish closely associated with Poland, it may also have Russian roots
Yeah.
as well,
Okay.
which makes sense when you consider the extended Soviet occupation of Poland.
Yeah.
You may already be familiar with pierogi as they are very popular not only in Poland, but in the United States
Yeah.
as well. So you can probably already order them up
that looks
from your
good.
favorite delivery app, or you can find a simple recipe and prepare a batch yourself.
Getting hungry again. For the Men
If
in
you're
Black.
getting serious about your relationship with a Polish significant other and you get invited to dinner with your potential future in-laws, you'd better hope that the Polish
Whoa.
soup chernina isn't
That
on
looks
the
like
menu.
a Filipino
if you are,
dinuguan.
in fact, served chernina, you should take it as a hint that your relationship is on the road to nowhere. While there are certainly easier ways to give a suitor the slip, there are few that are quite so delicious as chernina. It's a thick, creamy soup made from duck blood that's
Okay.
drained straight
So it
from
is
the duck
blood.
and then placed in vinegar so as to prevent coagulation. Like stuffed cabbage rolls, chernina has a sweet and sour flavor, in this case from a combination of vinegar and dried fruits like prunes. The name chernina refers to the color of the soup, which is black thanks to all that blood. According to Gastro Obscura,
That looks good.
thick, creamy, and iron-rich, this black soup might be worth risking rejection. Kashanka is a blood sausage made from a mixture of buckwheat groats, pig's blood, and various parts of the pig that would otherwise
Polish
be
black
tossed
pudding.
into the garbage as offal, including the intestines, which are used to encase this popular Polish delicacy. Kashanka is also sometimes called kishkas in certain parts of the world. According to the August Escoffier School of Culinary Arts, blood actually holds an esteemed place in Polish cuisine and other culinary cultures, as it adds not only a deep color but also
great
a
cultures do
richness to
something
many
with blood.
dishes. The
Something delicious
Escoffier
with
School
blood.
actually doesn't specifically mention kashanka in this context, but kashanka nonetheless represents an
potatoes.
admirable use of blood in cooking. Rather, it's more likely that kashanka is considered a peasant dish. It is, after all,
I'll
made
take it.
from the lower parts of the pig, plus buckwheat to stretch those parts out even further.
Kind of like a haggis.
Kalachki are light pastries that some might consider cookies.
That
They
looks
have
good.
a sweet fruit
I have
filling
a
and are
sweet tooth.
sprinkled
Big
with
time.
powdered sugar. According to Tony Clary, an American who has spent 23 years living and working near Warsaw, Poland, they're usually prepared around holidays or weddings, and they sit out on a table or counter so that sweets are handy for coffee or tea. But why wait for once a year to enjoy this
Right.
cream cheese-enriched pastry
Oh,
that
cream
Clary
cheese.
believes came about thanks to Polish-Ukrainian-Jewish interaction? As with a number of other dishes on this roundup of fabulous Polish foods, Kalachki
the
is
pastry
beloved
must
in
be
Poland
really,
and
deliciously
recognizes
rich.
no borders,
With the cream
as it
cheese in it?
also boasts fans in Russia, Austria, the Czech Republic, and Denmark, among others. You may already be familiar with a variation known as rugeluk, which is a tradition on the tables of
Rugeluk.
Jewish people who can trace their roots to Central and
Looks
or
like a
Eastern
mini cinnamon
Europe.
roll.
However, while rugeluk refers to
Or
a
a
horn-shaped
cinnamon
pastry,
crouton, or not crouton,
kalachki are meant to resemble
croissant.
a flower in bloom. And while kalachki is always stuffed with fruit, rugeluk may be filled with nuts, raisins, or seeds.
That looks cool.
You might not associate Poland with cheese making, but once you taste osypek, a wonderful smoked cheese made from salted
Osypek?
sheep's milk, it's unlikely you'll ever
Osypek.
forget that Poland is
Sounds
the
like a
only place
medicine.
in the world where this particular cheese is made. Specifically, osypek is produced solely in Poland's Tatra Mountains, and even more specifically,
Tatra.
it's made only by Górale, who are traditional shepherds and Tatra cheesemakers. Nevertheless, you'll likely be able to find osypek almost everywhere in the country. Osypek is typically served grilled in order to highlight the hardness of its rind and the tenderness
wow.
of its interior.
I've heard of cheeses
because
that
it's
you could
often
grill and
served
they
with
don't melt.
cranberry jam as a condiment, it might call to mind brie. But once you taste it, you'll never get
I love brie.
osypek confused with that French-based aged wheel of cheese.
Spill the cheese!
Silesian kluski refers to a soft, unfilled dumpling made with potato.
Potato
that
dumplings.
may call to mind
that
Italian
looks good.
gnocchi and German spätzle.
Okay.
It's also worth noting
I've
that
had
the word
spätzle.
kluski,
Spätzle.
without the Silesian prefix, can also refer to certain kinds of soup noodles. As you might surmise, that indentation is there to help the dumpling cook faster.
Oh.
And also, according to
you
Lois
go.
Britton, the blogger behind Polish Housewife, the shape is a wonderful repository for whatever topping is paired with the
Fill it
dumpling.
with some gravy or whatever.
It has been said on many occasions that there is no dessert that's associated with the United States as much as apple pie. Hot dogs might run a close second, even though they're not typically a dessert.
Lettuce
Although
on a
the
hot
two
dog?
have recently been working quite harmoniously
new.
together in Guy Fieri's apple pie hot dog recipe. But here's
What
a
the
fun
hell?
fact that comes to us from
Apple
Tony
pie hot
Clary.
dog?
The Polish apple-filled
Why?
pastry known as szarlotka
Or
is
why not, I
basically
guess.
the apple pie that Americans are used to. In
That looks
fact,
good.
just like apple pie, szarlotka is often served with ice cream. So when you hear szarlotka, think apple pie. And don't think of Charlotte
Charlotte,
Russe,
that damn
as you
Charlotte.
might be inclined to do so, considering that
Pain
szarlotka
in the
certainly
butt
sounds like
to
it would be
make.
related to that ladyfingers and custard-based trifle.
Mm-hmm.
Charlotte Russe is considered a French dessert, despite its moniker, which is believed to be a call-out to Russian Tsar Alexander I. Meanwhile, the Polish szarlotka
That
would
looks
probably
good.
prefer that you not associate it in any way with Russia. Another food that some consider to be Poland's national dish is schabowa. The word schabowa means chop in Polish, which makes sense when you learn that this dish is a boneless pork chop that's been pounded thin and then coated with egg, breadcrumbs, and flour before
Okay.
being fried to crispy perfection
Yeah,
in
cutlet.
hot oil. Schabowa is sometimes referred to as kotlet schabowa, and this may be for the purpose of highlighting that it's supposed to be made with a pork chop cutlet instead
There
of
you go.
an on-the-bone chop. Schabowa is traditionally served with potatoes and cabbage, although it may also be served with grated beetroot or sauerkraut. If schabowa looks somewhat familiar to you, it may be because it reminds you
Schnitzel.
of schnitzel,
Okay.
another pounded cutlet of meat that is battered and fried. Schnitzel tends to be
So,
a bit more commonly
Arnold meal
known
right
in
there.
the U.S., particularly in areas with a significant history of German immigration. As noted by the blog Tasting Poland, although Polish cuisine seems to have an inclination towards time-consuming and laborious recipes, there are also some Polish foods that are
Takes
both
time to make some good
tasty
food.
and simple and fast to prepare. One such example of the latter is the traditional soup known as ogórkowa, which means cucumber soup.
Cucumber
It is
soup, okay.
sometimes known as sour cucumber soup or Polish pickle soup. as it's made with many of the ingredients that are associated with the preparation of sour pickles,
looks like a delicious beef
cucumbers,
stew.
garlic, bay leaves, and peppercorns. As Poland.travel noted in its roundup of the 7 meals anyone traveling to Poland should try, nothing warms up the belly like the Polish cucumber soup. It is a consistent and tasty dish with lots of ingredients like bacon, sour pickled cucumbers, leek, carrots, celery, pepper, parsnip, and many more. Another reason for Ogórkowa's popularity is that it stores well, which means it can be prepared ahead of time and heated up as needed.
Yeah.
Thick, white, enriched with kielbasa and garnished with hard-cooked egg, Zurich is a classic Polish soup that gets its deep sour tang from fermented rye flour. According to CNN, it's the perfect Polish comfort food, and it's considered a bit of a national treasure.
That's high praise!
Indeed, Zurich is a winter soup favorite of Tony Clary, who was raised in the Boston area before he spent 23 years living and working in Poland. He considers Zurich to be absolutely delicious, and he tells Mashed that it makes for a hearty starter to cold weather meals.
Oh, okay.
Clary also notes that Zurich is often mistaken for another thick white soup, known as
that one, if I looked at that,
however, biala borscht gets its sour
I would think it would be some kind of dessert, just by looking at it. I know it's not.
Furthermore, as Clary describes it, Zurich is a soup that's both thick and hearty, which stands in contrast to the lighter biala borscht. Biala borscht is a tasty Polish soup typically eaten on Easter morning.
Yeah, that
it
looks,
contains sausage, eggs, potatoes, and
like
other
a,
ingredients that contain a significant amount of religious symbolism. Thick and white and garnished with a hard-cooked egg, biala borscht is also known as Polish white borscht. Although borscht czerwona can be served in a bowl, some people prefer to serve and consume it drink style, from clear glassware or mugs. It's also often adorned with dill or other fresh green herbs, and sometimes with a bit of sour cream.
I love dill, especially on my eggs.
And for many Polish families, borscht czerwona is a long-standing Christmas Eve tradition.
I was just going to say, it looks like a Christmassy dish.
Christmas tradition.
When the topic of summer soups comes up in America, our minds tend to go immediately to brightly colored gazpachos or lightly spiced broth-based vegetable soups like minestrone or summer vegetable. What we don't tend to conjure up at this time of year is images of thick and creamy soups. But over in Poland, one of the most popular and classic summer soups is a creamy type of borscht that's served cold. It's commonly referred to as chłodnik, although that term is also used to refer generally to any number of cold summer soups. The style of chłodnik that refers specifically to creamy cold borscht starts with simmered beets. Then the resulting dark red beet broth is blended with cucumbers, radishes, and milk products, including yogurt, kefir, or sour cream. As described by Taste Atlas, the result is a refreshing, vibrant pink soup that ideally soothes the heat. Like Zurich, chłodnik is also garnished with hard-cooked eggs. Like other borscht, it may also be garnished with dill, and it can occasionally also include meat. In Polish, the word kielbasa refers generically to all Polish sausage, of which there are many, many varieties.
I didn't know
These include biała kielbasa, which is a white uncured sausage with a strong hit of marjoram in its flavor profile, cabanossi, which is closer to a Slim Jim than what you might typically think of as sausage, and wędzona, which is a smoked pork sausage that's been cured with garlic, sugar, and salt. Wędzona kielbasa is dark red with a shiny, wrinkly exterior. If it looks familiar to you, it's probably because it's usually the variety that's sold in American supermarkets as polska kielbasa. This type of kielbasa has a strong, garlicky flavor profile and often comes in a horseshoe shape, fully cooked and ready to be eaten right out of the package.
Delicious.
As we just mentioned, in Poland, the word kielbasa refers to any variety of Polish sausage, and there's definitely more than one type of Polish sausage. We've also just established that the one known as wędzona is generally the variety that's sold as polska kielbasa in American supermarkets, even if the label doesn't say wędzona. But there's another variety of kielbasa that you really need to try, and that is cabanossi. Cabanossi is sometimes referred to as a hunter's sausage. That means, according to the S. Clyde Weaver blog, it's more like what you'd think of as a meat snack stick rather than sausage you'd serve as part of a meal. Just like the red, wrinkly, horseshoe-shaped wędzona kielbasa, cabanossi is also ready to eat right out of the package. Furthermore, it's also shelf-stable since it's smoked and dried. Kasha is the Russian word for porridge, which is a cereal made by cooking hulled, crushed grains in a liquid such as water or milk. The Polish version of kasha is kasha, which is pronounced the same but spelled with a Z instead of an H. Polish kasha is made from the hulled seeds of the buckwheat plant, which isn't actually a grain at all. Nevertheless, hulled buckwheat seeds cook up into porridge the way wheat and other grains do. They're often referred to as buckwheat groats, and they're a good source of protein and antioxidants. When buckwheat groats are toasted first, they deliver what can be considered a rich and nutty flavor. Polish kasha is the resulting porridge made from cooking.
That's a good technique with seeds and whatever you're using. Toast it first, like in a dry pan until it like slightly browns, or until you can smell it a little bit. You don't want it to smell too much because you might burn it. Same thing with rice, and then cook it, and it brings out the flavor.
Wheat groats, and it can be used for both sweet and savory dishes. And when prepared with mushrooms and onions, kasha is a popular Polish breakfast food. Beef stroganoff is yet another example of a Polish food that has strong cultural ties to another country.
Beef stroganoff, isn't that getting a little loose with the language?
In this case, that country is Russia, which occupied Poland for many years. The generally accepted history of this particular dish is that a French chef in the employ of a rich St. Petersburg family created it for a cooking contest in 1891. The custom of the day was to name the prize-winning dish after his employer, who was a man by the name of Stroganov. What most people think of as beef stroganoff is essentially the dish that came out of that contest. It's comprised of thin strips of beet, apparently thin enough to be chewed by the dentally challenged Mr. Stroganov. Those strips have been slow-cooked with mushrooms and onions and a thick sour cream sauce. By contrast, Polish beef stroganoff has a thinner sauce and makes use of tomatoes. And in keeping with the Polish preference for sour taste, classic Polish beef stroganoff also gets a hit of sour tang from dill pickles. The word golonka means knuckle in Polish. When used in the context of Polish cuisine, golonka refers to a hearty dish made by slow braising a cut of meat known as pork knuckle. The word knuckle may conjure images of fingers and joints spoiling for a fight, but in the case of pork knuckle, it actually refers to the meaty upper part of the pig's leg. Pork knuckle is sometimes referred to as pork shank, and when it's smoked or cured, it's known as ham hock. For Polish golonka, the braising liquid typically includes beer, which lends the pork a pleasantly sour note that many of the other Polish foods on this list also possess. According to Polish housewife blogger Lois Britton, it's fantastic with a little sauerkraut, maybe some boiled potatoes, and roasted vegetables. It's a Polish classic. If you can find it, cook it. Potato pancakes supposedly owe their existence to a mass planting of potatoes in Poland and Ukraine during the 19th century. This made potatoes abundant and inexpensive, which led people to think of creative ways to substitute this tuber for other ingredients in their cooking. One example included swapping shredded potatoes for ricotta cheese in the cheese pancakes that had traditionally been enjoyed on the Jewish holiday of Hanukkah. Not only did this catch on within the Polish Jewish community, it was also embraced by the general Polish population at large. If you haven't tried potato pancakes, you absolutely need to rectify that immediately. Simply grate a potato and an onion. While you drain them in a colander, beat together an egg, 2 tablespoons of flour, and a dash of salt and pepper. Fold in the potatoes and onions, form patties, and fry them to a crispy golden brown.
Sounds good.
Naleśniki is the Polish word for very thin, flexible pancakes that are meant to be rolled around a filling, whether sweet or savory. If that sounds like the beginning of a rolled French crepe to you, then you're on the right track. The difference is that in Poland, naleśniki comprise the beginning not of crepes per se, but rather of blintzes. Like its French equivalent, the blintz is a thin and flexible pancake that's been rolled around a sweet or savory filling. However, the classic recipe for blintzes involves an extra step, which is pan-frying the rolled and stuffed pancake so that the filling becomes warm and melty, and the exterior develops a golden brown color. If you do decide to try this particular Polish food, be forewarned that it could leave you wondering why on earth the French don't pan-fry their crepes after they've been rolled.
What's up with that?
Yeah, true.
New York and bagels go together like
Bagels.
Wisconsin and cheese. Despite that enduring association, this particular bread product's origins actually lie elsewhere. It turns out that the story of bagels can be traced back to Poland, specifically the city of Krakow. As legend has it, the first bagel was rolled in 1683 to resemble the Polish king's stirrup. However, as reported by Smithsonian Magazine, written records from Krakow indicate that bagels were being rolled, parboiled, and baked since at least as early as 1610.
Wow.
That appears to be the earliest written reference to this dense, chewy bread with a pleasantly crisp exterior. Today, an estimated 150,000 bagels are sold in Krakow
A day.
alone every single day,
A day.
whether in bakeries, shops, or even on street carts.
Wow.
Considering the bagel's current ubiquity, it's unlikely that we even need to convince you to indulge in this now classic Polish street food. But at least now you can tell yourself that you're doing it in the name of history and culture.
There you
Oh,
go.
great. So much for bagels.
If you're a fan of eggnog, then you
I
really
love
need
me
to
some
know
eggnog.
about the sweet and eggy Polish treat known as gogol mogul.
Gogol
This
mogul.
dessert dates
That's a cool
back
name.
to Poland and Russia's Jewish communities of the 1700s. It's creamy and drinkable, and its primary ingredients are egg yolks and sugar. Vanilla, cocoa, honey, and even alcoholic beverages may be added to enhance the experience. There is one primary difference between eggnog and its Central European cousin, and that is that eggnog contains milk and/or cream, whereas gogol mogul does not. Since it avoids milk, which is a throat irritant for some people, gogol mogul can be used not only as a delicious drinkable dessert treat, but also as a comforting remedy for a sore throat or a scratchy voice, especially when it's served warm. In fact, it's even been said that Barbra Streisand's mom gave it to her as a child in order to strengthen her vocal cords.
Interesting.
Even in the off chance that nothing else in this roundup of Polish foods has you searching for authentic Polish restaurants near you, Karpatka may still
Ooh,
change
that
your
looks
mind.
good.
Seriously, this one is a major crowd pleaser that even counted the late Pope John Paul II among its fans. Well, sort of. The Polish-born former head of the Catholic Church was known to have had a soft spot for a slightly fancier version of Karpatka that was known as
Look at
Kremówka,
that.
which
That
has
looks
since
good.
been renamed Papal Cream Cake in honor of the late pontiff. Kremówka consists of 2 layers of
got some height to
well-laminated
it.
puff pastry and a thick layer of smooth vanilla-flavored cream. Karpatka is basically the same thing as Papal Cream Cake, except that the pastry layers consist of the far less work-intensive pâte à choux,
Pâte à
which
choux.
is a simple pastry dough
The,
that doesn't require the additional
cream puff
layering
dough.
in of butter that pastry dough's lamination requires. And why is it called Karpatka? The top layer of pâte à choux develops delicate peaks, and when they're dusted with confectioner's sugar, they're said to resemble the snow-covered Carpathian Mountains,
Okay.
which run through Poland and other parts of Central and Eastern Europe.
That was interesting. Food of Poland, there's a lot of it. And a lot of it seemed to be a rich, how would I put this? Good for cold winter days. Very filling, very comforting. All that stuff looked really good. Like I said, I'm a sauerkraut guy. I love sauerkraut. So sauerkraut and some sausage with some potatoes. Oh man, I'm starving again. It was very, very cool to learn about a lot of the things like that. And I got to go to Poland, try all that stuff out. Anyways, guys, let me know what you thought of the video and chime in. Let me know if there's any other things from Poland that I missed, food-wise, and I'll be sure to check them out. All right, guys, please like, comment, subscribe, and I'll catch you next time. See you later.